live?
What's up, everybody?
Oh,
Learn to fight. We're back with
we
another
become.
episode. Got the boys here. We got Deal with It Will or Deal with Will. We got Omen Black TV, and we'll get in today. So, the channel we're familiar with Will. He's our guy. We've had him on the show before, but we've never had Omen on the show before. So let us know a little bit about yourself and what you do and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, I like combat sports too. I actually like all sorts of martial arts. But yeah, I started my channel after coming out of a coma. As you know, I had a stroke. I'm in my 40s, so it's not unheard of. But yeah, um, I have to. I have to kind of play with what I have. It's kind of hard. I can maintain a dialogue nowadays, but in the beginning, it was like going from my first sentence to the second was enough for me to forget what I was talking about.
Wow.
But yeah,
Damn. So what was that like? Were you before that? Were you like super healthy, or what were you like before the stroke?
man, I won't say I was super healthy because, well, when I had the stroke, you could consider me healthy already, but back in the day, I had huge problems with addiction, and yeah. But it's kind of funny how life works because when I had the stroke, um if you remember that video I made was really about that. When I uh, woke up from the stroke, first thing I thought was, "Damn, I messed up again." But actually, all my tests came out negative. So, and because I lost my memory, I wasn't being able to understand what the hell was going on. But I was actually out of drugs for like almost 5 years when this happened.
So that was not even drug induced or nothing. Just
Yeah, I
you know.
mean, like I was saying, for sure, the years of use might have played a part in there, but
Mm,
not directly related. No,
yeah, yeah, man. Health is no joke. Like you know,
absolutely.
I mean, there was recently I forget the dude's name, but he was at the Carlos Prates versus Ian Gary fight. There's a guy, he had cancer. He was 32 years old, and he had really
Oh,
bad cancer. And it's like, you know, your health is everything. And being a young dude, you really, really gotta, you know, take care of your health. I'm extremely grateful for health. And that's one of the reasons I got into martial arts. I got into fighting myself, was just to be as healthy as possible. But let's dive into that. The addiction thing a little bit, because in the fight game in MMA, a lot of fighters actually have addiction things, and that's why they get addicted. They
mhm.
switch their addiction to becoming martial arts, and then they become world champions. That's what you see with like
Yeah,
Conor McGregor, for example. He has an
yeah, that
addictive mentality.
adrenaline boost, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, would you have you ever tried martial arts or anything like that?
What me? Well, I when I was a kid, I was in love with karate, and well, I trained a little Muay Thai, but yeah, I never. How do you say? I never competed. I never
Yeah.
did anything really. I trained a little, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Nothing crazy.
I didn't do. I would love nowadays because I lost my balance. I would love to train jiu-jitsu, or because if it's to the ground, it's to the ground. Whatever. I don't need to stay standing. But yeah, I can't count on kickboxing or
Yeah. So,
or Muay Thai or whatever else. I have to do standing.
So Will actually does a lot in the addiction community. So I don't know if you want to get into that or let us know what you think about what he said, what Omen said.
Yeah, man, what a way to start the live stream. And this is the cool part about having a three-way panel and just being able to have an open conversation, I guess. But yeah, so I'm actually coming up on 8 years sober myself. I tell people all the time. So
Awesome.
I go to rehabs every other Monday to speak with some of the guys there and share my story and kind of encourage the guys and lift them up a little bit. But from what I have seen, I mean, like I was in the sober living house and everything, right? You know, like I spent 34
Hmm.
months in a halfway house essentially, and from
Right.
what I've seen, these guys and girls, when they're coming off of drugs, they do one of two things. They either, as soon as they get sober, they get into a relationship and they'll pursue
Uh
that
huh.
relationship into the gates of hell. And a lot of times bad things will happen, right? Because you're all mentally messed up. You really don't know how to love yourself,
Absolutely.
much
You're
less
not
love
ready
another
yet.
person. Right. Or the guys and girls that really get it, they usually get in the gym, they get a job, they get into school, and then they start becoming addicted with success and self improvement.
Yeah, exactly. I believe that addiction trait, it's in a way, it's a superpower. But like every superpower has a double-edged sword. You know what I'm saying? So you can use it for good or you can use it for bad. Like if you were addicted to figuring out the stock market, like you're gonna be rich as fuck. You know what I'm saying? If you're
Yeah.
addicted to becoming the best fighter in the world, you're gonna be a really good martial artist. But then on the opposite end, it can go left as well, as we're seeing with some fighters. We've seen it with Stephen Bonner. We've seen it with, allegedly McGregor. How he was literally like one of the best fighters ever, and then he's partying, doing his thing. So that's why I love, and even you could say John Jones. He said
Mm.
that he was drinking like every day for a while there when he was younger, and he's had his struggles. So it's interesting to me how a lot of times some of the most talented people in society are people who have addiction problems or whatever. So yeah, I think it's very interesting. But Omen, you were in recent video. You were talking about how like you died on the operating table. Can you get into that story a little bit? Yeah, what was that about?
um. Yeah. So here's how it happened. Uh, I was with my brother at home, and I went to the bathroom, and I guess I never came out. So my brother went there and hit a few times, and knocked a few times. I was never coming out, so he ended up finding me on the floor, out. You know, and my pulse was getting really slow, so he called an ambulance straight away. Uh, and while I was going to the hospital, I was reanimated once on the way, and another one soon as I got there, another time. Um, so yeah, I guess you can say that I died two times on the way to the hospital.
And that was from the stroke, or that was a different situation?
No, it was. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was from the stroke. I mean, so I know that the damage I have, it's from the time I was out. You know, while I was being reanimated, my brain didn't get enough oxygen for a while. So all this mass, my left arm doesn't move very well. My balance is messed up. My memory was completely. Whew. So all of that is due to that damage. Because my brain wasn't oxygenated. I guess that's how you say it
Yeah,
for
yeah.
for a few
Boxing might
minutes.
be one of the Boxing might be one of the best things you could do to get that motor function back. One of the guys I trained, he's like 70 years old. He has Parkinson's, and he
Wow.
said the best
Hmm.
thing that has kept the Parkinson's off or helped him like keep his mobility and keep his body good is the boxing. So, even if you box like just in your house, just you don't have to go to a gym, just kind of mess around. Like I think that could
Yeah.
make a huge difference, huge difference. But so you had all this going on, you're fighting the addiction, you're out of that, getting your life on track, and boom, you get a stroke. You die on
Yeah.
the thing twice, you come back. So you're a fighter yourself. So how did you end up? Where does MMA come into all this? Where does YouTube and MMA come into this?
Man, like I told you, I always had that love for martial arts, and so I remember when I came out of a coma, the only thing I would do in the hospital was basically watching MMA fights, on YouTube. That was how, and my first way to train memory was I would try to go through the rankings, you know, of every division in the UFC, at least the top 10. I would try to see if I could remember all of them. I mean, I wouldn't have to put them in order, but if I could say at least 10 of each division, I was happy with it. And it was a way to, just make some exercise to the
Mm.
brain. I don't know.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, that's
Hey, and
legit, man.
then and sorry if my English sounds kind of messy. It's not only my memory; it's also on Portuguese. Please don't forget that.
Nah, it's all good. And it sounds great. But, me personally, I think right now in MMA, the most exciting weight class, the most interesting weight class is 170 pounds. I mean, yeah, you have 55 as well, but for me, it's kind of always been 170 pounds. You know, Will, I don't know what you think, but what do you think the most interesting weight class is and why right now?
Well, I would have to agree with that just because uh, the pound for pound, one of the pound for pound best fighters in the world just moved up to 170. But even before that, Kamaru Usman, and before that was GSP, and Bisping was the champ of 170, or was it 185?
Yeah, 185.
185. Yeah, so it's been a very exciting weight class, and I think right now with all of the younger guys coming up, um, yeah, 155. See, 155 is interesting because a lot of the older guys are still competing at a high level. They're acing all their tests because the company has tried to put Dustin and Justin against some of these younger guys, and they've come out on top. So they remain the top dogs. Whereas in welterweight, there has been a changing of the guard where we've seen some of these younger guys break into the top. Guys like JDM,
Yeah, JDM, Morales, Ian Gary. Who else you got in there? You got
Buckley.
a lot of guys, It's a whole different world at 170. Omen. What do you think?
I,
Who's
I
the
was just I was just thinking to think Buckley was knocked out by what's his name?
Kevin Holland?
That other dude
Who-
that talks a lot.
Yeah, Kevin Holland.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I just remember that. I don't know why. But yeah. Buckley's on the tear and he's very good. I'm sure he's going to be a champion.
Buckley, I think
But
so
was
too.
it what was your question again? Sorry.
What's the most exciting weight class right now to you?
I mean, I love them all, but I've been gradually uh, starting to love the smaller divisions. I don't know why, but yeah, for sure, 155ers have made history in a way. You know, that division has been, yeah, blowing up. But it seems like these past 2 years, or maybe even three, it started. You know, I mean, I have to tell you, it's more or less since Khabib got in there, because
There's some echo on your. I think it's your thing. There's a little bit of echo going on. So I don't know if
mine.
I think it's yours. Yeah, there's a
Uh,
slight echo.
how,
It's not. I don't think it's
how
from your
can I?
mic. I think it might be from. I don't know if you got a computer in the background or what, but yeah. I mean, I agree. I think Buckley is going to be the next champ. I know Will disagrees, but yeah, I just think Buckley has the X factor.
Hey, well, let me say this because I owe Joaquin Buckley an apology. I said that
Mhm.
I believe that Ian Gary had beaten more of the younger guys, some of these killers, where as Joaquin Buckley had beaten some of the older guys. Joaquin Buckley beat Nar Sultan Ruzaboev or whatever, however you say it. He fights tonight. And I was looking at the card and I was like, oh my God.
Beat him in St. Louis. Yep.
Yeah, and,
Whooped his
and he
ass.
beat him and he beat him bad too. And that dude's a monster. So I owe Buckley an apology. That's a tough fight.
Yeah, no, but people sleep on Buckley. I slept on him too, but then I just was watching him because the way he fights, it's not like as pretty as Ian Gary fighting. You know, it's not all these beautiful techniques, but the thing
Yeah,
he has something that you can't really see unless you're in
he's a
there fighting
dog,
him.
man.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. When John Jones came out, John Jones had incredible throws, but when you see him throwing his punches and stuff early on, I was like, I don't get it. Like, what's the big deal? I don't understand it. There's something Buckley has where it's the same thing. You can't really see it unless you're in there. Because the fact he went out there and knocked out that dude who's a really good fighter, great record, really strong guy. He destroyed him, knocked him out. The spinning back kick knockout. He started his career in the UFC against
Yeah, yeah, that
Imperial
one.
Champion. You know, he has these hits. You know, he has these moments. He beat Kobe. You know what I'm saying? He just has something that is an intangible factor, kind of like Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou has something that's intangible. You can't really see. You know what I'm saying? He just goes in there and fucks people up. You know what I'm saying? And that's what Buckley also has. There's some fighters that come along that have this thing. I believe Michael Morales also has this intangible factor that when you see Michael Morales fight, he doesn't have super clean, crisp striking. He has good wrestling, yeah, but he has something that you can't really see, which could be just the inner fire that he really wants to win the fight and he's willing to go maybe a little bit further than other people, you know?
Yeah, I agree, bro. I agree. Yeah. So which even furthers your point that welterweight is probably the most exciting division to watch right now in the UFC.
Yeah. You know, by far, you know, at like I love light heavyweight. Historically, light heavyweight was the marquee division for the UFC. Like if you have a superstar in the UFC, which it all started with Chuck Liddell being the top guy, that's 205. Then you got John Jones, 205. You got Rampage, 205, Rashad Evans. Historically, and obviously Alex Pereira, historically that 205-pound division is a very whoever is the champ and is able to keep that belt is going to be a big start. But right now at 205, it doesn't have, maybe because Alex Pereira whooped everyone's ass, but it like Ankalaev, it's cool, but it doesn't really, you know what I'm saying? I'm not like excited to see Ankalaev fight. You know what I'm saying? And Ankalaev is a great fighter. I'm not excited to see him fight Khalil Roundtree or excited to see him fight Yuri Prohaska.
Yeah, I think the most
But
exciting
you know
thing
what?
about Uncle. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just listening to him, and I was thinking, it's not like he annihilated what's his name? Pereira. He won decisively, yes, but it wasn't like, because people are making it look like, I don't know. That's the feeling I have. But yeah, yeah, he won, but I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I'm.
I I don't know his style, enough to say anything about bad or good about him. But yeah,
Yeah. Oh
he
man,
just haven't impressed me yet. Sorry.
Yeah.
Hold on. Hey, Omen, your thing is like it's creating some crazy like reverberation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Is there?
yeah, it's
I don't.
definitely yours. You hear that, Will? Yeah, yeah, it's your thing. So
But
here, I'll put you on mute for
how
a
can
second,
I?
see if you can fix it. Here, I'll put you on mute for a second, see if you can fix it. But
All right.
but yeah, so um
Yeah, fixed.
yeah, I got Buckley. I got Buckley winning that belt. I'd put money on it. You know, you know, I the two guys I think who were the number one people to watch would be Buckley and Morales. You know, I think both of them beat JDM. I think Buckley beats No, I think Buckley beats JDM. I don't think Morales can beat JDM. The reason Buckley beats JDM is because Buckley, St. Louis specifically, is known for boxing. There's really good boxers in St. Louis, and Buckley's out there working with the boxers in St. Louis, and he's just, JDM is mean. He's a tough, dirty, gritty, not dirty in the sense of like he's like a dirty fighter, but he's like a real
Yeah.
gritty fighter. I think that's like a fight of the year candidate, Buckley versus JDM, And I get ready to see it. People be like, "Oh, you're just dick riding Buckley because he's from St. Louis." Now, Buckley's a dog, and people sleep on him. I think partly because UFC doesn't promote him. Buckley had one of the craziest knockouts ever, bro. They don't even show that knockout. You know what I'm saying?
Don't.
They really don't show that knockout. So that's crazy. Like, he is a 360, one of the most watched knockouts in the last 5 years, and they don't even show it.
Yeah, it's crazy, bro. You want to see if Omen's got his
Yeah,
mic fixed?
yeah. Let me see
I,
here. Oh,
Oh,
no, you still got it. It's still,
it's still.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know what you got going on, but it's still going, Omen. Yeah, it's
but
like real bad.
I'm listening to you also doing like some sort of echo. But I don't know what can I do. I really don't know.
You probably got to turn down the thing, the noise on your laptop. But I'll turn it down for a second because it's like super bad.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had to do it because it's like ridiculously bad. But hey, hit that like button. We're about to get into these fights in a moment. Hit that like button. We got Deal with Will here. We got Omen Black TV. And yeah, man, Will, what up? What else you got going on? What's new with you?
Oh man, bro, not too much. I'm actually pretty excited for these fights tonight, and I was sleeping on it. I was gonna participate just as a fan. I got my girl over here. She's in the side room, taking a little nap. She's taking a little nap right now. But then when you said you wanted to live stream, I said, well, let me look at these fights a little bit. Let me kind of get into it. And as I'm looking through the card, I started to get a little bit more excited. So really, bro, I'm just glad to be here with you guys, and I'm excited for these fights tonight.
Oh yeah. Yeah, likewise. You know, there's so many good fights like constantly happening. So I mean there's so many fighters on this card. I mean, I don't even know. Like, let's take a quick look at the actual fight card. So here we got hold up, let me pull it up right here.
There's a few undefeated prospects on the undercard. One of them is a huge favorite, minus 650. If you want to look on the undercard, there's a few on the undercard that I looked at.
Let me see. All right, so this is the prelims. We got Santos versus Lisboa. You know, Let me see. Unmute. Omen. Yeah, we got Santos versus Lisboa. I don't know either of these. To be honest, I don't hate women's MMA. I just don't really watch it. I just don't follow it. So me personally, I couldn't care less about this fight. But Will, what do you think about this fight?
Was this on the early prelims? Because I didn't even see this. I thought it started with Tisha Torres.
No, yeah, must be. Yeah, this is the first fight, women's bantamweight. Then it goes.
Okay.
Maybe this is the main card. Green versus Murillo, and this is at 155 pounds. 32 years old, 24 years old. There's not much info on Camilo, whatever the fuck. Green. I mean, there's too many fighters in the UFC now. It's just too many fighters. It's way too much to follow. But so I don't even know either of these guys.
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't look at that one. There, like I said, I kind of just highlighted a few of the ones that I was interested in, particularly Jared Gordon next. So Jared Gordon has kind of found himself on the bad end of three losses. One was a disqualification with Bobby Green, the headbutt. It was, I believe it was a no contest. I think it might have resulted as a loss on his record. And then Patty Pimblett, and then
Wish he won that fight.
yeah, so I mean, these have been three very winnable fights that Jared probably could have won, and I thought this was really interesting. So when the live odds opened for Jared Gordon, he was, I believe, like a plus 102 dog, and now it's shifted to a minus 135 favorite from what I've seen looking at the odds. So something's happening with the odds with Vegas on this one. I think that a lot of people have kind of looked at Jared Gordon's losses and not really watched these fights or understood what took place, because we could potentially be talking about Flash Gordon in a very different light if he would have won those three fights, Patty Pimblett being one of them.
Yeah. I mean, and he did win that Patty Pimblett fight. It was a robbery. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
Patty is now top 10, right? So
Top 10.
probably number one contender if Ilya wins, right? So it's like, that's the thing. I think Gordon's gonna win this fight. Moises is a good fighter, but I'm going with Gordon. My money's on Gordon by just decision. Then we have Reed. Reed versus. Oh, this fight already happened. Women's strawweight.
Yeah, I was about to say. I did not see any of those. So.
Oh, okay. These fights already happened here. I saw somewhere that Burns versus Morales got canceled. Is that true? Or is okay?
No.
That must have been fake news.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
So here's the thing. Morales right now is probably, to me, he's the most interesting fighter in the division, because when we talk about fighters, right, we talk about champions. The last person to become a champion who was a young guy was John Jones. He was a champion when he was like, I believe, 23 years old. Morales is 25 years old, undefeated, 17-0, 17 or 18-0. And now he's fighting this fight that was JDM fought Burns to get the belt, the title fight. So if Morales is able to beat Burns, he really is up there. If he's able to beat Burns, he could fight for the belt. If someone falls out, whatever. And I think depending how this fight goes down, I could see Morales knocking out Burns just on some weird stuff, because sometimes in MMA, people get lucky. It is. Dominic Reyes said that a big part of MMA is actually luck. Yeah, there's a lot of skill, but sometimes you just get lucky. And I think Morales is going to get lucky in there. I think he's going to just throw something crazy and just clip Burns and knock him out and get lucky on some random stuff. And he's 25 years old. He really is a guy who can really break the mold and be that break a record, be the youngest champion at 170 pounds.
Yeah. So I agree with that, bro. It's kind of like what you talked about earlier. There's just certain intangibles when you're fighting at that level that is very hard to it's hard to win at that level. And sometimes things just go wrong. Sometimes luck is on people's side. But one thing I want to mention about Michael Morales, so he works with our boy Bilal Muhammad. Um, so that's already a plus. You know he's working his wrestling. I like his striking, and I love his ability to implement the kicks early on. One thing that kind of also his finishing ability is something that jumps out. But one thing that bothered me a little bit in the Neil Magny fight, Neil Magny got to his back within the first minute and a half of that first round, and if Gilbert is able to do that, I think he at least wins a round. Now, Morales was able to shake out of that and get back up, but I didn't like that.
I mean, people sleep on Neil Magny too. People
Bro,
pretend like Neil Magny some type of bum. I trained with Neil Magny back in 2018.
he's so
Neil
good.
Magny is a beast.
He's
He's
so
a
good.
great fighter. Really good fighter. So if you're able to beat Neil Magny, like you're really good. You know what I'm saying? So especially if you go 3 rounds with him, if you're able to go 3, because you can knock somebody out. It doesn't mean you're a better fighter than them. To me, if you're able to win a decision over a fighter, like you go a whole 15 minutes and you beat somebody, that definitively says that you're better than them. You know what I'm saying? Getting a knockout is cool. We love knockouts, but to be able to go 15 minutes and just outclass somebody. So Morales, he beat Neil Magny by decision, right?
I believe he got the finish, bro, if I'm not
Did
mistaken.
he TKO'd? Like, how did it play out exactly? I don't remember.
I would have to go back and look. I just remember. I believe he ground and pounded him and TKO'd him if I'm not mistaken. But I just remember. I remember Magny being able to get his back early on in that fight. But I believe he got Magny out of there. Um, but you know what? You can also argue with to finish a guy like Magny. That's tough because
Yeah,
not everybody can do that. Carlos Prates was able to get Neil Magny out of there, but that a lot of guys can't.
yeah, 1,000%. But Omen, what do you think? Who do you think is winning this fight? And do you think that Morales can be the champion at 170? Oh, you're on mute. Oh, 1 second. Let me get you. Yeah, shit.
Let's get him back in here.
We're having some technical. Your mic isn't connected. Your mic isn't connected, Omen. Yeah. So I don't know. We might have to run it back because we're having a lot of technical difficulties here. But yeah. Yeah, I think Morales can potentially put off, you know. When it comes to we got it back. All right, so we'll switch it. So, actually, hold on, let's go back real quick on this card. So we have Paul Craig. We also have Paul Craig fighting
Rodolfo.
Bellato. Tough fight for Paul Craig. This dude is a fucking beast.
Yeah.
Paul Craig is a great fighter as well. This is 205. But Bellato, I got, you know what? I'm going to go with Paul Craig for this fight. I think.
Go ahead.
I think Paul Craig is feeling himself after that fight with Bo Nickel. And I think this is I think Paul Craig will pull it off this fight against Bellato.
I tend to agree with you, Manny. I actually marked this one. I took some notes. I actually marked this one down as a potential upset alert.
Yeah.
Rodolfo is listed as a minus 550 favorite.
That's crazy.
So what I like about Rodolfo, so he trains with Alex Pereira. Him and Alex are really close, and he's durable. He had that fight with Jimmy Crute, and Jimmy Crute was getting the best of him. He was able to find success against Rodolfo with the wrestling, with a lot of the striking, but Rodolfo was able to change game plans mid-fight and kind of come back to edge out the draw, but he is susceptible to takedowns, and if Paul Craig can get anybody down, he can finish you.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Paul Craig, whenever he had Jamal Hill, he broke his arm, right, and had him like flopping all over the place with that. Paul Craig is a beast, really good fighter. And I think right now, a lot of times you see guys, Paul Craig is 30, how old is he? 37 years old. Oh, wow. 37 years old, but he's also in the heavier weight class. I think Paul Craig's been in the game for a minute, had a lot of fights. He's coming off that fight with Bo Nickel that he allegedly lost. I think he won that fight. And I think he's going to be feeling himself. I think he's going to go out there. He went up to 205. Oh, historically, when fighters go up in weight, they win. So that brings us to Charles Oliveira versus Ilya. So, you were saying that you felt that Ilya was really undersized and he's going up and he's fighting Oliveira, and Oliveira is going to be so much bigger. I disagree, because when it comes to 55 and 45, it's like we see McGregor come up and he was actually bigger than Eddie Alvarez. He was ragged on Eddie Alvarez. Historically, when fighters come up in weight, they usually win. So now, don't get me wrong, I got Oliveira winning, but I don't think Ilya is going to be way weaker than Oliveira or anything like that.
yeah. I mean, I don't believe that Ilya can't have success at 155. I think that's crazy. I think he can, potentially challenge for a title, maybe. I don't know which title it's going to be. It might just be the BMF title, because for Vegas to give Ilya the odds against Charles that they have given him is absolutely crazy. He hasn't fought anyone at lightweight yet. He's fought Max Holloway, who's a 45er, who went up to 55 for a couple fights, and he fought Volkanovski, who went up to lightweight for 2 fights. So now the way Ilya is built, he is a little on the shorter side, but the way he's built, he's got these big tree trunk legs, and he's powerful. He uses his center of gravity really well in his boxing, and I know he's really strong. It's just, man, I look at a guy like Michael Chandler, who is a good wrestler. Contrary to a lot of people's beliefs, Michael Chandler can wrestle a little bit. And for 2 different fights against Charles was just able to kind of throw him around. So I don't know. It's a completely unknown, but in my opinion, for Vegas to give the odds in favor to Ilya the way they have, I think it's a little crazy, bro. We've just never seen him against a true lightweight. And Drew Bronx is the champ. He's the former champ.
Former champ. I mean, let's test the theory out today. So typically, my theory is when fighters go up in weight, they usually win. So, for example, and I'll show evidence of this. Oliveira went up in weight. He became a champion. He started winning way more. Who else? There's been so many examples, but Conor McGregor went up in weight. He was already winning, but he went up and he won, right? There's been Anthony Johnson went up, started winning a bunch. Usually when guys go up in weight, they win more. So now, with that being said, I don't think Ilya is going to win in the Charles Oliveira fight. I think it's going to be a good fight. I think Oliveira is so good on the ground. Ilya is good on the ground too, but I do think Oliveira, what's going to be the difference is the kicks and the Muay Thai clinch and stuff like that is going to be the difference in this fight. So I'm going with Oliveira. I think that's an easy win. I think that's great money. But going back to the current card with my theory of when a fighter goes up in weight, Paul Craig, I think he's going to have a great performance tonight.
I think so too, bro. And speaking of that, on that topic, Sadiq Yusuff this is his first fight moving up from featherweight to lightweight.
Sadiq Yusuff.
Right there. It was right there. You go. Versus Santos. The one up.
Here we go.
There you go.
Yeah. So Sadiq Yusuf versus Santos. Sadiq Yusuf, great fighter. You know, Santos, good fighter. Me personally, Sadiq. Oh yeah, I'm going with the Nigerian. You know, I'm African. Yeah, I'm always rocking with the Nigerian. Yeah, you know how we do it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Look, Sadiq is he's a volume puncher, man. He throws a lot of punches. He's a good striker. I think he is on a 2 fight losing streak. So we'll see what this move to lightweight does, because when these guys move to different weight divisions, it's essentially like a fresh start. So I'm excited to see what Sadiq will be able to use to be able to do. Excuse me. He did mention that. He's got something wrong with his back. He was supposed to have surgery, but he opted to like put it off. So injuries is one thing that I don't like about Sadiq right now, as well as his tendency to pretty much in every fight just about always get hurt on the feet. Now he is very durable. He recovers really fast, but he's a little susceptible to getting hurt on the feet. But I like him moving up to lightweight. It's a fresh start for him.
Yo, Omen. So your mic isn't going. It's not. I don't know what's going on. There's some type of issue, but yeah, it can't take you out of. We can't hear you. So it says your mic isn't connected. So I don't know. Maybe we can reintroduce you, or we can run it back. We're gonna be going for a while. Omen, peace. We'll have Omen back soon. Much love, my man. You guys go check out Omen Black TV on YouTube. Peace, my man. So yeah. So there's a few things I want to get into with you, Will. So, for example, all right, we were talking about Sadiq, right? I want to go back to the lightweight. So I actually got a bone to pick with you, because you were talking about people are old and stuff like this. Why do you think at lightweight, for example, lightweight is the perfect example, because all the top guys are mid-30s, right? So why is that? What do you think that's about?
So let me say this, bro. I don't think just because you're 30, because someone turns 35 years old, that they're automatically frail and they can't compete. I don't think that. But statistically, we see that after guys turn 30, I mean, Volkanovski just did it. In the lighter weight classes, I believe welterweight and down, Volkanovski's been the only guy to claim a title after the age of 35. Now, obviously, we have our anomalies. We have our Jose Aldos. We've got, I mean, you name it. There's
No,
quite a
that's
few
not true.
guys.
Figueroa, how old is he?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm saying
Figueiredo.
there's quite a few guys but you know, historically speaking, there is a decline. When that decline comes for some guys, it's not like it's written down somewhere that when you turn a certain age, you have to decline. It's different for everybody, but it's just like the tail of the tape. If a guy's got more reach, it's something that I'm gonna talk about. Now, I'm not gonna say that, oh, because someone's a certain age, they're automatically gonna lose. I tend to look at people's last few fights, right? And that's why I like Usman so much, or I've given him so much grace, let's say, against Buckley, just because his last fight was against Hamzat and he made it look good on short notice, versus Gilbert Burns coming off of 2 really bad losses. And I would love nothing more than the Gilbert Burns to go out there tonight and
Smoke the young guy.
and smoke the young guy. The young guy is going to be around for a while. He'll be able to climb back up. I'd like to see Gilbert get it, but that's my thing, bro.
Okay, but what if Michael Morales really is the next John Jones? What if we've been sleeping on him? He really is that guy. So Michael Morales fought one of my good friends, one of my best friends actually, Nikolai Veravinov. Nikolai is a hell of a fighter, great fighter. Yeah. He fought Austin Vanderford last, and that fight played out the way it played out. Is what it is. They stopped it early, but Nikolai is a hell of a fighter, especially in the gym. I've seen him piece up world champions before. So and him and Morales, they had a great fight, you know, back and forth. Morales kind of stole the fight at the very end with the big slam. So if Morales is able to beat him, I already knew, like, yeah, this dude's gonna go far because he was able to beat Nikolai. And it showed, like, he's literally now one of the top guys in the division. So I do think he's gonna beat Burns, just because I think Burns is only fighting because he wants to get the belt. He hasn't gotten the belt yet, right? Maybe he's fighting for money, who knows? As when Morales, man, he's 25 years old. He has, you know, I look like 25, bro. He's training all day, every day, nonstop. He's making money. He's from wherever he's from, Ecuador or wherever, right? Bro, they didn't have no money out there. Like, he's making money, like, he's doing his thing. It's like, man, this guy really might take it all the way, just based on all those factors. I actually met Morales before at ADCC, like maybe 2-3 years ago, and yeah, he just seems like a guy who's just fully into fighting. You know, he's nothing else is entering his mind. You know.
Yeah, and you know what, bro? Back to the age thing and just everything regarding that. There might be something with Gilbert Burns that maybe we don't know about. Supposedly he did get injured in the Bilal Muhammad fight. So maybe
where did he get injured with that? What's the rumor behind that?
Man, I think it was something with his arm, and I think it happened really early. So maybe what is going on is Gilbert has gotten himself fully healthy, and maybe he just believes, hey, you know, I haven't given it my best, or that hasn't been the best version of myself, and maybe he still has something to prove there. And I hope that is the case. I really do. I mean, he looked really good against JDM until the last minute and a half of the final round. He almost beat JDM. If he could have, yeah, he did. He won the first 2 rounds. He was able to take him down and do what he wanted to, get the control time, and JDM slipped out and finished him in the last minute or something of that 3rd round. So, you know, we'll see. I'm rooting for Gilbert, bro. I like Gilbert Burns. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I like him as well. I think he's a good dude, solid dude. I love the stories. I like a Michael Bisping story, you know, someone who's been fighting for so long. Michael Bisping, for the longest, you know, everyone was like, oh, he'll never be champion. Like, when he got knocked out by Hendo at UFC 100, people would just play that over and over again. No one thought he would actually become a champion, you know? If you're saying that you thought Michael Bisping was going to become a champion, I would say you're a fucking liar. You know what I'm saying? But he did it. He put it together and he did it. You know, I would love to see something like that for Gilbert Burns. That's what inspires me. You know, I think that's great. And, you know, yeah, he might go out there and just beat the young guy's ass tonight. You know, I don't know how Morales' weight cut was looking. I don't know. Did you hear anything about that? Or
no, I didn't hear anything about that. I did look up missed weight UFC to see if there was any news, to see if anybody did miss. I think everybody made weight and did pretty good in the process.
So that reminds me, something you said earlier. You were talking about for example, Arman, and you're saying that Arman, you know, he pulled out the fight and whatnot. So here's my thing, right? I feel like so many times in MMA and UFC, whatever, the fans, like, you can't demonize a fighter for pulling out for an injury. Arman's one of the toughest fighters, one of the best fighters in the world. He's only pulling out if he has a serious injury. So for me, I don't think he should be penalized for pulling out with the back injury. Because if he's pulling out fight week, because if he goes in there and fights compromised, I fought compromised before, and you know, I did it because I sold so many tickets and I had my family coming. I had a lot of people coming, you know, and it was just something that was really important to me. I shouldn't have went in there injured, you know, but that's why I did it. For me, I feel Arman, he's going in there. It's the biggest fight of his life. It's for the belt. If you lose, you might not ever fight for the belt again. You have a serious back injury. he should pull out the fight. You know, we don't want guys in there dying in there and getting seriously hurt, right? So I don't know. I don't penalize him for pulling out of the fight with the injury, you know.
And this is why I like talking to you, because we get the fighter's perspective. These are things that the fans are not able to see just because we've never walked in those shoes. I think for Arman though, he pulled out the day before the fight, and then you see the interviews with the Nina drama, and so that's what we see as fans. It's like, so it's tough, but I do understand that. After Gilbert Burns lost to Kamaru, you remember he started crying because he knew in that moment that he may never get to that spot again, and all the work that it takes, and just all these things. So I can definitely understand that.
Yeah, and you know, as far as like the Nina drama thing, you know, I mean, bro, I don't like it. I don't really like it, bro, because this is war we're talking about, right? We're going to war. We don't want it like we just have random chicks coming with their titties out and like, you know, doing these goofball interviews. And to be honest, I think when these fighters do interviews with Nina, I think they're more likely to lose because like,
we should look at the statistics for that.
Yeah, there probably is some statistics on because look at it. Think about it. Sean Strickland was doing all this shit with Nina drama, right? Strickland. I mean, Nina was going as far as to come to his fight camp and making content like while he's sparring and which is fine. Maybe it doesn't affect him. But for me, I wouldn't want my training camp to be some fucking show. You know what I'm saying? For some chick who's a comedian to come in and like you're having fun while I'm about to preparing for a world championship fight. Like John Jones, you wouldn't see her. John Jones wouldn't let her come to his camp. You know what I'm saying? So It's like I do think the stuff that she brings it makes a fighter more likely to lose just based on what we've seen with because Strickland, he fought the two fights he had with DDP. I believe Nina was like kind of heavily making a lot of content and constantly in his camp. Now, I'm not saying that, Nina coming in, it like makes a massive difference, but I do think it makes a difference. And then Alex Pereira, whenever he fought his last fight, you know, obviously it was a close fight, but I just think that when you bring in Nina to these fighters, Israel Adesanya, same thing. I think she makes fighters lose their edge because it's too much softness, it's too much joking around. Like, no, go back to the days when it was GSP and like BJ Penn and it was UFC primetime. There was no, you know what I'm saying? It's just too, like, these are warriors going to war. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it makes it to where it trivializes what's going on in the actual fight. And it rubs me the wrong way. I don't like this like influencer hopping into MMA culture shit. You know what I'm saying? It's just different. This is martial arts. We don't need random chicks with OnlyFans coming in and fucking it up. You know what I'm saying? But I could be wrong, but that's what I personally think.
Well, I tend to agree with you, but I'll say this: it kind of points to the state of the UFC as a promotion right now, because I mean Nina is on the inside, like she's in the know. I mean, is she employed by the UFC? I think she might be. It just goes to show you the lack of promotion. The only people really promoting UFC at this point is the people that's doing what me and you are doing right now.
Oh yeah,
the UFC could do a lot better.
Peace, Mo, my man. Who you got winning the fights tonight, Mo? I mean, but to take it back to Nina, look, like this is also something that's very interesting to me. So look at the UFC. Let's take it back to UFC 100, right? Okay, there was stars, right? We had GSP, we had Brock Lesnar, we had Frank Mir, we had just stars. Even the ring card girls, right? Like Ariane Celeste is the main one that can come to my mind right now. Brittany Palmer, right? Nowadays, I couldn't name not one ring card girl. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't name not one. And to be honest, it should be like that because who cares about the ring card girls are cool and all, but we want to see the fighters. But today, I couldn't name not one ring card girl. There's too many fighters on the roster. So now we're getting these watered down fights. You know, like I always say, if you're a woman and you're halfway athletic, you should get into MMA because there's a very solid, valid chance that you could get in the UFC if you're even halfway athletic, you know.
Wow.
And that's just a fact. Like yeah, you go in and you fight someone like Valentina, you're gonna get your ass beat. But
Right.
like if you're a woman and you're just even decently athletic, you have a very serious chance of getting into UFC. Because how many fighters that are in the UFC, if you're good looking, you have a really good chance. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing. Like we've seen so many of these women fights that it's like some of them just really aren't that skilled. You know, it's like they don't really. I don't want to say they don't deserve to be in the UFC, but I mean, it seems like they're giving a watered down product. And now, yeah, there's still great fights all the time. You know, when they put together a great fight card, and even this fight card is a great fight card. You know, but I mean, I feel like we see low level WMMA in the UFC all the time. That's a fact. That's a whole fact. You know, there's just so many, so many examples, and when it's not being sexist or anything like that, it's just a fact. Like some of these chicks don't deserve to be in the UFC. You know what I'm saying? You could never just start up and be like, all right, I'm gonna go to WNBA now. Or maybe you could. I don't really watch WNBA, so I don't know,
That's a great point you just made, bro. And honestly, that's a clip. We should probably clip that and put that out there because that is so true. So women in mixed martial arts is still in the infancy, right? I mean, this didn't happen for the UFC until what, Ronda Rousey, so middle 2000s. So the talent pool isn't very big. So yeah, I used to tell my ex-girlfriend that. She was big, long arms, athletic. I used to tell her, you ought to consider getting into a jujitsu room and maybe trying to get on a regional scene and take some fights because you're absolutely right, bro. It's not at the same level as the men, and part of that reason is just because it hasn't been as women have not been as involved for as long, I would say.
Bro said, not gonna lie, WMMA and the UFC is my refreshment breaks. Hey, me too. Me too, bro. You're preaching to the choir.
One chick that not everybody, but a lot of MMA fans just don't like, but I've always liked is Holly Holmes, bro.
Hey, Holly Holm is a dog. Holly Holm is a
Bro,
real fighter.
I've
Holly
always
Holm
loved
is a
Holly.
fighter's fighter. Like Holly Holm, I don't know if you ever seen a clip of her getting knocked out brutally in a boxing match. And then, like, do you ever see a clip?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's a real fighter. Like, there's fighters, like, she's 40 years old and she's still in there throwing hands. She, like, loves to fight.
She's going back to boxing too.
And that brings up a great point. Because I think the level of women's MMA has actually gone down, because we look a few years ago, even before the UFC, let's go back to Strikeforce. We had Miesha Tate, we had Ronda Rousey, we had Kat Zingano, Holly Holm was in there, Gina Carano, like very skilled female fighters. Even, bring the timeline up a little bit, Michelle Watterson, Juliana Pena, there was a seemingly more skilled fighters back in the day from the women's perspective. Now, as MMA has become more popular, more mainstream, now it's become more watered down. And there's girls who really aren't that good, who really probably shouldn't be in there. Like, remember the girl, the Chinese doctor who head kicked that chick and like almost killed her? That chick shouldn't have never been in the UFC ever. And she almost died because of it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I think the level has gone down as time has gone on, and my Mo, he agrees. He says, by the looks of it, it is that way. And to be honest, it's been like that with the males as well. Like, because back in the day, I think, if you were fighting, you really, really loved it, right? And nowadays you can make money from it. Cool, you can do this, you can do that. Like for example, Sean O'Malley, he said he started fighting because he just wanted to get chicks. That was the only reason he started fighting. Turned out he's a good fighter. Turns out he's really good, really athletic. But if you go back in the day, like these guys weren't fighting. Maybe some of them are fighting to get chicks. Yeah, that's always a thing. But it seems like nowadays, you know, there's just so many fighters that really shouldn't really be there. And it's because there's so many people on the roster. Like they need, you get in there, you got a short notice. They need somebody. The roster is too big. The roster is like way too big. They should probably cut it in half, you know, and give some to the rest of the people. You know what I'm saying? Give some to PFL, give some to here. But you can't do that because the UFC has too many media obligations. So it's like, I believe the way it's structured is like they're supposed to put on X amount of shows every year to be able to fulfill their contract obligations. So that's where you need all these fighters, and that's where you have all these fight cards and fight nights and stuff, you know.
Yeah, what are they gonna do with the Apex if they trim down?
I mean, the Apex shouldn't even be a thing. The Apex was like supposed to be you know, a short notice thing for the pandemic, and that's it. Like the Apex doesn't even really make sense to me. It just kind of worked out for them. But yeah, that brings me back to the point where it's like, let's go back to Nina Drama. Let's go back on her head for a second. She's cool, all right? Don't get me wrong. She has her place in the sport. But it just kind of rubs me the wrong way because does she really provide that much value to UFC? I don't know that she does. Maybe she does. I don't know, because there has to be a reason that they brought her on. But, you know, it's like, it's just, I don't know, bro. It's just weird to me. It just seems like she's getting clout from these big time fighters. And now if they like her and they want to give her the clout, then great, you know. But it's like, I just don't, I think for me as a martial artist, it rubs me the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? Like we have Sean Strickland, a real fighter, hardcore fighter. And Sean Strickland's cool with it, of course, because otherwise she wouldn't be in the camp or she wouldn't be there. But maybe he's getting from it as well. Maybe he's getting more followers or whatever from it, from having her in the mix. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like to see these like OnlyFans shit coming into the sport. You know, fucking up a man's sport. You know what I'm saying? And you know, there's women as well, but I don't know.
Yeah, but you know, a lot of these girls, a lot of these women on the roster, you know, they probably don't like all this OnlyFans stuff either. But I would say the value that she brings when she has these conversations with fighters, you're able to see kind of this little other side to them, like this little silly, bashful side of some of the fighters.
But right there, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Right. Is if you're going to war with another person, right? Let's say we're going to war. We're trying to kill each other. There's no silly. You know what I'm saying? Like if you show that, that's going to make your opponent be the people you're going to war with. They're going to be like, oh, okay, we got him now. You know what I'm saying? Oh, okay, we got him. And that's what I think psychologically is happening with some of these fighters when they do these interviews with her. Like they're having fun. She's like making them. She's literally making them softer. Yeah. She's doing it during fight week. You know what I'm saying? When people need to be ready to go to war. And because when we go into that cage, there is a chance you could die. It's never happened in the UFC, but there's a chance you could die. And to show your opponent that you like gummy bears or whatever it is, it's like, I don't know, bro. I think it's just like, I don't think that's her intention to cause harm. But to me, it's pretty harmful, actually, you know, just because, because, for example, I believe the Muslim fighters don't do interviews with her, right?
I don't think so.
I don't think they do. And now look at that. Look at how you look. If we saw Islam being like a goofball and saying, oh, I love gummy bear, dancing around and shit, now his aura is a little bit less. You know what I'm saying? Now it's like you're in there. When we see Alex Pereira is a great example. Alex Pereira could do, you know, be silly and stuff, but we don't really see him being silly because he doesn't speak English, right? So there's
Right.
still a layer of mystique behind him. So when he's in there and he's stone faced, you're like, oh shit, I'm fighting Alex Pereira. As to where with Izzy, when he was fighting Strickland, or I forget which fight it was, I think Strickland, it's like when he came out and he was the champ and he was beating everybody's ass and he was coming out with the death note and he was doing all this, it was like, yeah, he had that swag about him. He had that certain vibe about him. And then, you know, I feel like when you start showing too much of, you leave that your silly side for your wife at home. You leave that for the people who really know you, your friends. But when you're going to war, it's wartime. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
that's where I think if someone can find the stats, like when fighters do interviews with Nina, do they lose more? You know what I'm saying? Like if I'm John Jones and I'm gonna fight Aspinall, I'm not doing no Nina drama interviews, none, zero. You know what I'm saying? Because this dude is looking at you. Yes, you're John Jones, but he's like, okay, he's falling off a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like he just needs a little bit of confidence. And if you give that other fighter a little bit of confidence, that's all they need to win the fight. So I think when these guys go and they have interviews with Nina, they're giving the other fighters more confidence. You know?
Yeah.
Arman lost the whole title shot. Yeah, Arman lost the whole title shot. That's a fact.
And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. Like, and that's what the fans see. The fans see Armin trying to flirt with this girl, being sweet on this girl, and then the next thing we see is Armin can't fight. Eh, So fighters might need to rethink this whole Nina drama thing.
That's a fact. Yeah, and you know, I mean, if the Muslim fighters, Khamzat, I don't know, has Khamzat done an interview with Nina? I don't think so.
I think
Maybe
he may have, but I
he
know
might have.
not that Kamzat's not a real Muslim, but these like super devout like Islam and Habib. I don't think they've even went around that girl.
Nah, not at all. And the thing is, like, it does give them a little bit extra power, a little bit of extra focus. So I don't know, man, but you know, yeah, man. I don't know. I just, it rubs me the wrong way because I'm an old school guy. I've been watching the sport for a long time. I think that I'm gonna watch the sport regardless. If they have 100 OnlyFans chicks on the thing, I'm gonna still watch it. But I think that's something that's why are they putting all this resources towards her when they could put it on, you know, another fighter. I mean, Paddy Pimblett, you know, is a great guy right now. He really isn't really getting that much promotion, in my opinion. Like, you know what I'm saying? Maybe because he's not fighting right now, but I think next up, if Ilya wins, they got to make Paddy versus Ilya.
Yeah, the storyline's already there.
Yeah, and that's interesting to me too, because I was thinking earlier, I'm like, you know, on some conspiracy theorist type shit, like it's kind of weird that, you know, Paddy and Ilya had their beef a few years ago, and now it's setting up to where they're about to, like, they could have this like super fight, you know, on some WWE shit. Like it couldn't be written any better.
I've spoke to people that really believe that the promotion has kind of aided and helped Patty along the way. I don't know what that means exactly because I can see where, you know, you could be gifted a close decision but I have a friend who calls Patty the Jake Paul of MMA, which I think is crazy. I'm not on that. That's not my take, but I've heard that.
No, there are real Jake Pauls of MMA that aren't in the UFC, but like as far as like
I know who you talking about.
Yeah, as far as like Paddy goes, no, Paddy has fought real fights. Yeah, the Jared Garden fight was a weird one. You know, is what it is. I believe he lost that fight. Most people believe he lost that fight, but he did beat Bobby Green. Yeah, it was an older Bobby Green who's had, you know, whatever, 60 fights. Sure, he did beat Michael Chandler. You know, So he earned where he's at. You know, no one can say he didn't earn where he's at, because even to beat these guys, like, you could get knocked out like in a heartbeat. Like, Chandler's not an easy fight for nobody, you know.
No.
Bobby Green is not an easy fight for anybody. So Paddy earned where he's at. I think Ilya also earned where he's at. No one can say Ilya had an easy road. You know, he's whooped everyone's ass, yeah, but it's just interesting to me. I think 145 is a harder weight class than 155. So earlier when you're saying that the 145 or Ilya hasn't really earned, he hasn't beat any 55ers. I think the guys he's fighting at 45 are harder fights, you know. So, and historically we've seen that, because Dustin Poirier, you know, when he went to 55, he was performing better, right? There's been so many guys who went Edson Barboza went up to 55 and was performing better. Now, you could take that a few different ways. You could say that, oh, they were draining themselves and that's why they were losing at 45. Or is it that the fighters at 45 are just better, faster, more skilled, and when they go up, that's why they're winning now? You know what I'm saying?
That's interesting, because I promise you, I believe, like, when Max fought Justin,
Exactly.
I believe Max could potentially win, but I didn't think he would dominate like he did. And we look at Dan Hooker going down to fight Calvin Kattar. He got destroyed.
Yeah.
So there may be something to that. I think 155 has this shine on it because McGregor used to be there and Khabib.
Ferguson, Green, Chandler, all different shades of washed out Pimlet, still doing what's required. See, outside of those three, his resume isn't great. Yeah, but
Gotta start somewhere.
resume. Yeah, they were older when they fought, but you know, we can't act like prime Tony Ferguson wasn't a beast. You know, yeah, he didn't fight Tony Ferguson in his prime. We can't act like Chandler is. Those are still great wins, and the average MMA fighter can't beat those guys. So Paddy earned it. You know, yeah, he was given these fights at a time where he's more likely to win, sure, but we got to give him his props. You know, he did earn where he's at. But what were we saying before that? What were we saying?
That's a good question, bro. I think we're talking about the featherweight and the lightweight thing.
Yeah. So featherweight, I think they just have better fighters. I think the fighters are just better, because we see McGregor go up from featherweight and just absolutely destroy Eddie Alvarez. Like, they shouldn't even be in the same, you know, division. Like, Eddie Alvarez wasn't the champion. Then we see, you know, how many guys Oliveira went up from 45 and then he's winning more. So I think 45 really is a tougher division. So by that logic, Ilya should beat Oliveira. I couldn't see him doing it easily, but yeah, man, Ilya is a great pick, just because he's coming up from 45, which is probably a harder division. Usually when guys go up, they win. Also, he's a younger guy. So, but yeah, if you're being logical, Ilya's gonna win the fight. But I got Charles going out there. I'm going with my heart. I'm going with Charles. You know, but I do think, you know, we look at like Arnold Allen, right? Arnold Allen is a fucking hell of a fighter. You know, Arnold Allen.
I like Arnold Allen.
Yeah, great fighter. And so yeah, I think 45 is a tougher weight class. It probably is the toughest weight class in the whole sport. I think a lot of people just don't really see it that way, or don't really realize that. In the future, there will be people. In the future, people will just see their names with no context. That's a fact. That's what Jake Paul does. Same exact thing. Just the names with no context. Oh, he beat Mike Tyson, right? McGregor at 145 was a feat weight cutting. He looked like a skeleton, but he did it. Yeah, now that was wild. I'm gonna look in this card. Yeah, Will, let me know what you think about this. Yo, about what's going on.
Where are we at right now?
Let me see. Let me find the play by play.
It looks like the Hyun Sung Park, the Asian guy, the undefeated prospect. His fight to, but I'm not seeing where it's saying win or loss. I don't even know. Yeah, where we at, man?
See, right now looks like most recent fight where Jared Gordon versus Thiago Moises. So far, it looks like Jared Gordon KO'd Moises. Hey,
Gordon
yeah.
what? Let's
Yep.
go.
Let's
Let's go.
fucking go. Let's
Man,
fucking go.
we might just know what we're talking about a little bit, bro.
Yeah. Yep. KO at 337 via punches.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Like I said, when the live odds first came out for that fight, he was an underdog, and as time went on, he's been the only fighter on this card where the lines have moved that drastically. He became the favorite.
I think Gordon is low key. He should have Paddy Pimblett's ranking. So that's who he really is, and he's really good. So anybody who fights him is gonna have a tough time. Especially, I know Jared's pissed off because he knows that he beat Paddy, and if Paddy gets the belt, he's gonna be a tough guy to beat. And UFC obviously doesn't want him to be up there. I don't think they want him up there.
Yeah, and
Based on
then and then the tough deal with Bobby Green, and then the close decision on his last fight. So, like I said earlier, Flash Gordon could easily have could be in Patty's shoes right now.
Yeah, without a doubt, he could easily be there. And I think that's gonna be one of the main reasons why he's gonna be a tough fight for everybody. So coming up next is Gabriel Green versus Mateus Camilo. So Camilo is the favorite, one minus 186. So I'll be honest, like Camilo, I don't really remember none of his fights. Gabriel Green is a good fighter, but me personally, I couldn't care less about who wins this fight. I have no skin in the game in this fight. What do you got in this fight?
I really don't have much skin in the game either. Like I said, whenever you called and said you wanted to do the live stream, I kind of skimmed over it, and I think I picked 3 or 4 fights from the undercard to kind of go from, and it was mostly I was curious about these undefeated prospects and Flash Gordon as well as Tisha Torres coming back for her first fight of 2025. Did Tisha win?
Tisha Torres, let's see. Tisha Torres. Yeah, I don't see her on here. No clue.
Or Tisha Pennington. She got married to Raquel. She fought Luana Pinheiro. Luana Pinheiro.
Yeah, Tisha Pennington defeated Luana Pereira by unanimous decision.
Okay.
So that's interesting. I mean, what do you think that's like? They're both married. They're both in the UFC. That must be real interesting dynamic. You know what I'm saying? Like, how does that work?
Man, I don't even know, bro. I couldn't even imagine what their world's like. I know Tisha got pregnant. They did the I guess the little IVF treatment, and she had her baby in 2023. So she's a new mother, and she came back and she actually retired Carla Esparza, not retired her like she beat her ass, but that's the fight Carla Esparza retired. So Tisha's beaten a lot of the top girls, or at least fought a lot of the top women in her division. But then again, Luana has too. So I think Luana fought Carla as well.
Yeah, let's look into this fight, this 145 featherweight fight a little bit more. So I'm going to show you, you know, basically my formula for betting for fights. So, we got Yusuf versus Santos. No, obviously I'm gonna choose Yusuf because he's Nigerian, but let's dive into it a little bit more. So Yusuf is 5'9", 31 years old. He's orthodox. They have similar reach. So the reason I think Yusuf is gonna win is because typically taller fighters perform better. And then also older fighters, he's 31, so he's coming into his prime. He has a lot of fights, he's very skilled. So that's where I go with. He's also more accurate, slightly, but this is basically a similar matchup. I think the experience of Yusuf is what's going to come into play. You could say that Santos has more experience. I mean, they have similar experience, but I do think the 31, a little bit more testosterone, a little bit taller. I think that's what's going to edge it out for him. I think that's where Yusuf is a good pick for this fight. And, also, just because people have similar records doesn't really mean a whole lot. Yeah, Yusuf is coming off of 2 losses straight, but who did he lose to? He lost to Diego Lopez and he lost to Edson Barboza. Those are some of the best fighters for a long time. He also lost to Arnold Allen. And now when we go into Santos, who did he lose to? Santos.
I think his last loss might have been in LFA.
In LFA, which LFA, great fighters in LFA. LFA is the UFC. You know what I'm saying? It's like some of the fights, which his last fight was against Dan Arjetta, I know Dan Arjetta, and Dan Arjetta, he had a tough run in the UFC. So for me, I'm gonna go with Yusuf. I think Yusuf is gonna put that work in this fight. I don't think it's gonna be a good time for Santos at all.
Man, when Santos first came on the scene, when I saw him at LFA, he was fighting I believe it was Costa, and he came out with like the Naruto outfit on. He earns extra aura just from coming out like that because I'm a big Naruto fan.
Oh yeah, big Naruto.
So both of these guys are volume punchers. I like how Santos utilizes his kicks. Like I said, the only thing, and it's big things that I don't like about Yusuf is the back surgery that he's putting off. He's injured, and we just don't know how bad it is. And
That's a fact.
That's a fact. That's a fact. He was talking about it recently. So he's putting off the surgery for his back, and the fact that he does get hurt in a pretty much almost every fight. You see him get hurt pretty bad. Now he does recover really well, but the thing that I have going for him is the fact that he's moving up to lightweight. So this is a brand new beginning for him.
And when guys typically move up in weight class, watch. When they typically move up, they usually win. So if Yusuf wins and Paul Craig wins tonight, my theory is confirmed. You know what I'm saying? So let's see here. I just had to check whether Green retired. Looks like he might be done, but you never know. You're supposed to be Bobby Green. I think he's talking about Bobby Green. I don't think Bobby Green is retired. I don't think so. I think he's still going to fight a little bit. Bobby Green's a local guy, California guy. I don't think he's retired. I would love to see Bobby Green and maybe a Tony Ferguson fight. I think that makes sense. I think that's a good matchup. Tony Ferguson, is he still in the UFC? He's not in the UFC, right? Yeah, he's in GFL. Yeah, I mean, let's get into that. Bro, let's get into that.
Yeah.
Tony Ferguson is supposed to fight Dylan Dennis, right? So if Tony Ferguson were to lose to Dylan Dennis, bro, I'd be so pissed, bro.
So did you hear that GFL is not even a real organization? The investor pulled the money from the bank account or something along those lines. It was never a real thing. The investor, the guy with the money, got cold feet. and it's just not happening.
Yeah, I don't know much about what's going on with GFL. I know a few guys I trained with were in the or supposed to be in the GFL. I heard they had a lot of money. They're paying dudes. They're actually even paying guys before they fought. So I don't know what's going on with that. Last I heard that they're still gonna make it happen. I'm assuming if they really have all these fighters under contract and they're promoting, that something's gonna happen with it. So you know, I want to see it go through because I think that we need more organizations in MMA. We just do. We can't have one show having all the fighters. You know what I'm saying? We need a PFL. We need another Strike Force, you know? Because that was the golden era of MMA when we had UFC, we had Strike Force, and the UFC and Strike Force were competing to have like the best shows. You know, that was like the golden era. So I think we need that. And I would love to see GFL, the concept behind it is a great concept. Like, I want to see, because here's the thing about MMA, right? You train your whole life to become a high-level fighter, to become really good. You know, like, you look at it like a doctor, someone who goes to medical school, they go to school for 10 years, and now they can be a doctor for however long, right? Someone like Junior Dos Santos, who is in his 40s, but he still feels good. He's still beating people up in the gym. He still wants to do it. You know, these guys should be able to make money, and I would pay to watch Junior Dos Santos fight. I would pay to watch Junior Dos Santos fight, you know, let's say a Rosenstruck or someone like that. I think that's an interesting fight. I think that's a fun fight. I want to see it. So there needs to be a place for these guys to go where they can make money off their skill set and still do what they love to do. Let's say Shogun, for example. Shogun still wanted to fight, right? So let's say we have Shogun versus Luke Rockhold. That's an interesting fight. I want to see what happens, you know? They're not trying to become a champion no more, but they can still fight, and they still have a lot to offer. You know what I'm saying? So I think GFL is necessary, or something like a GFL. You know, PFL is cool, but their model of we're just doing a tournament. There needs to be a place where these guys who are named fighters can have fights, and it's not always about getting the belt. It's just about having a fight and entertainment. That's where the UFC used to be, right? When Shogun and Dan Henderson fought, one of the best fights ever, by the way, they weren't trying to get to the belt. They were just having a fight. You know what I'm saying? So, and it was one of the best fights ever. That's where the UFC used to just put on these great fights where it was like no one's worried about the belt. No one's even thinking about the belt. They're just trying to have a fight. They're just trying to have a good time. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's one of the things where UFC is missing out, because nowadays it's about, ranking, this and that. Like, who gives a fuck? No, I want to see just good fights. You know, there's a time and place. Like, yeah, the rankings are cool, but this sport isn't football. You know what I'm saying? It's not no fucking, like, no, this is like, we want to see what you have in your heart. We want to see your determination. We want to see your drive. We want to see Tony Ferguson come back after an 8-fight losing streak and just have a glorious moment. You know, that's what I want to see. That's what it's about to me. So I think GFL is necessary, or something like a GFL is necessary.
Yeah, I think they'd be crazy to not try and make it work out, because GFL, people were more excited about GFL than PFL.
Yeah.
And you see organizations like Karate Combat that are having a lot of success. BKFC, they're having a lot of success. And speaking of Karate Combat, I think Sam Alvey just defended his belt again, bro.
Yeah, against Tyrone Strong. And Tyrone Strong, one of the best kickboxers of all time, right? Sam Alvey was on the longest losing streak ever in UFC history, 8 fights, right? So now, if there's no Karate Combat, what, Sam Alvey's just gonna go teach and be a teacher, or go back being a blue collar worker, when we don't ever get to see his fights with Tyrone Strong and his Karate Combat reign? That's what I'm saying. Like, there's a longer shelf life beyond the UFC, or beyond the moment you're a champion. Junior Dos Santos was a champion for a short period of time. That was like over 10 years ago, I think, at this point. So Bro's still fighting, still having great fights. He had a bare knuckle fight with Fabricio Verdum that was great, you know. So I think there really does need to be an option for fighters just to have fun fights and make money. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't always have to be about you're trying to be a world champion or whatever, you know. Like, and that's the biggest thing that the sport's missing, because back in the day, that's what it was. You know, Robbie Lawler was fighting because he liked to fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, he wasn't really caring about the belt. You know what I'm saying? Strikeforce wasn't necessarily about the belt. Yes, they did these Grand Prix tournaments and shit, but they put on just good fights. And I think ultimately, as an MMA fan, that's what we want to see is good fights, right? We want to see storylines and we want to see good fights. That's what I think most people want to see.
Yeah, because I'm going to tell you right now, like, as soon as they did the Eddie Alvarez, Jeremy Stevens fight, or the Eddie and Mike Perry, I bought that pay-per-view for BKFC. I didn't care about who was on the undercard, but I was tuning in to see that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, me too. And that was a great fight. Chad Mendez over there in the BKFC beating people's ass, you know?
Or was it Chad and what Jeremy and Alvarez did something too, didn't they?
Yeah, Jeremy and Alvarez, they had a good fight, and Jeremy beat Alvarez. You know, I believe he like broke his jaw or something. They had a fight in Philly.
And Luke Rockhold fight. Yeah, man. So there's been some big fights. It seems like BKFC and Karate Combat are kind of leading the way. Like PFL, for whatever reason, their big stars aren't fighting a lot, and they just released Patchy Mix. Did you see that?
Yeah, I've seen that. I like PFL though. I like how they handled it. I like how they didn't try to hurt Patchy Mix on the way out. They said he's a great fighter. We're just parting ways. We wish him success. Like, that's how I think it should go. Like, if Francis Ngannou leaves the PFL or he leaves UFC, hey, you know, he's a great fighter. We like him, blah, blah. I don't like this, like, trying to destroy the guy when he's on the way out. It's just not necessary. It's not cool. It's like it just doesn't look good. It's not professional, in my opinion. But the problem with PFL is they're not putting on entertaining. They're putting on entertaining fights, but they're too caught up in trying to be a sport. MMA is not a sport. It's a little bit more than that. You know what I'm saying? And the more closer people try to make it like football or baseball or whatever, then it loses its authenticity. You know, like back in the day when we had fighters coming out in the crazy shorts with the Condom Depot on the back and shit, that's what we like to see. This is MMA, you know what I'm saying? And with PFL, they got too caught up in it's the professional fight league. So we're doing tournaments. When you're doing this tournament shit, no one gives a fuck. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, we'll watch the fights, but for me, when I started watching MMA, I started watching and got hooked to it because I watched the countdown shows and I watched the UFC primetime and I watched George St. Pierre and BJ Penn, their training camps, their backstory, what they had going on, who they were as people, why they started fighting. GSP was getting bullied as a kid. Oh shit. I feel like me as a teenager, right? Me as a teenager, I'm watching GSP on UFC Countdown. He's talking about he was bullied as a kid. He was a shy kid, this and that. He felt weak. Now me as a 13, 14-year-old kid watching this, I'm like, oh shit, that's how I feel. Damn, I can be like that guy. Whoa, shit, let me start training martial arts. Now you're hooked. I could give a fuck less about GSP being a champion or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's what PFL is missing. PFL is missing the storylines. When you do these tournaments, there's no storyline. We don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, AJ McKee has an incredible storyline. AJ McKee is a great fighter. The problem is they're not promoting AJ McKee enough. They're not going into his life. Who is AJ? You know what I'm saying? Why does he fight? You know what I'm saying? Like, what makes you tick? Like, really, who are you? That's what they're missing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, bro. I think the last time I really tuned into PFL was the PFL versus Bellator card. And it was because there was a storyline there. You know, PFL was acquiring Bellator, and it was all of Bellator's champions versus PFL's champions.
Yeah. And it's like, like those moments where, for me, watching UFC primetime, you know, and they're going into, because if you're, for example, Michael Morales, I don't know shit about Michael Morales. All I know is he's a young dude who came from Ecuador. That's all I know. Gilbert Burns, I know a little bit about Gilbert Burns because he's been in the sport for a while, but there's no real point for me to become a fan of either one of them and be like, and you know, me as a professional fighter, I'm not really gonna be a fan of many guys anyways, but
Right.
like, there's no point where I'm like, I can really get behind Michael Morales. I understand what you're doing. I get what you're doing. I get who you are. Because no, it's just he's ranked whatever and he's ranked whatever. Okay, fight. I mean, that's the difference. Like when it comes to these fights, there's a little bit more than just, you know, like for example, we look at some of the biggest fights, John Jones versus Rashad Evans. There's a whole storyline there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's the difference. And that's ultimately what I think. Khabib versus McGregor, a giant storyline there. Biggest fight in UFC history. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we need. We need more of the stories.
Right.
And that's where like these older fighters who aren't trying to be champions no more, but they want to have good fun fights. That's where that comes into play. And matter of fact, I have right here UFC primetime, John Jones versus Evans. You know, let's look at this. Let's look at a little clip of this real quick. Getting chills, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, now imagine you see that on Monday and the fight is coming up on Saturday. You're gonna buy that fucking pay-per-view. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing. Like, I don't understand why they're not doing this no more. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's because they got too many people on the roster, you know, but when we're talking about what PFL is missing, that's what they're missing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We can't get into it. You know what I'm saying? John Jones is saying he feels free when he hops in that cage. And I agree. I feel the same because like when you're in the cage, it feels like it's like you're free. You know what I'm saying? Like you just go in there and just be yourself and just fight, and just there's nothing else in the world that matters other than that moment when you're in the cage. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, bro. But like I said, man, I'm glad to see organizations like Karate Combat. You know, the storyline that they're kind of putting out there is that, hey, for everyone who's looking for a job, for all the fans that still want to see your favorite fighter fight, come.
Yeah.
Yes, Kane era was the days. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, Kane versus
Junior Dos
JDS,
Santos. Woo.
you know, on UFC Fox, you know, that shit was great. That was, I remember that like the back of my hand. Kane goes in there, drops the right hand on JDS, boom, UFC Fox, the first UFC Fox, and then he just destroys him in like one round. You know that, I don't know if you remember that fight, but let's get this shit back and let's see this.
Laws in there for me.
Forrest Griffin.
Yeah, with
It's
Rampage.
weird. It's weird seeing these guys nowadays like they're old now. You know what I'm saying? It's fucked up.
It's
But that's-
crazy. You never think that can happen to your favorite athlete or to you, but it's
Yeah.
life, bro. It's
Yeah.
life, man.
It really is, because like you see Rashad Evans, bro. Rashad Evans, he's older now. He's like in his 40s, I believe. You know, John Jones, he's approaching his 40s. You know, and it's like, man, you know, that's really how it is. You know, it's just weird to see, but that's life, though. You know, and the sport continues on, and you know, it's interesting to see because you know, like for example, Rampage and Rashad, they were gonna do their boxing match. I want to see it. I don't care that they're 45 years old. I don't give a fuck about that. I want to see it.
Yeah,
I
same.
think it's interesting. I think it's fun, you know. And it was Tyrone Spong who just fought Sam Alvey holding pads for Rashad Evans.
That's crazy.
Yeah, you know, it's just interesting to see. You know, in MMA, there's the Florida scene, there's a California scene. You know, there's just all these different scenes. But out there in Florida, yeah, it's like Tyrone Spong, Rashad Evans, you know, that whole Henry Hooft gym out there, like Kill Cliff, Michael Chandler, all those guys, you know. But yeah, let's see here. We have Connor Matthews and DeVal at 145. It looks like DeVal beat Connor Matthews via submission, rear naked choke, round 1,
That
254.
yeah, so so that was one of the ones that I wanted to talk about. We talked about it a little bit. DeVal 8-0, and he was the biggest favorite on the card at minus 650. And Connor Matthews is a good fighter.
Yeah, DeVal, I don't know. I've never seen this dude fight. I don't know anything about him. He's someone to watch out for. You think he would become a champion?
I mean, we'll see. He's got good jiu-jitsu. He's a volume striker, but lightweight is tough, and you gotta have some good wrestling. Well, since Islam's gone, maybe it's more wide open.
You think since Islam has left 55, I mean, there's still, I mean, we still have Arman there. Arman is gonna be a problem for everybody.
He is, and Arman's kind of got a similar type of wrestling. That sort of pressure wrestling from that region of the world is just so difficult to overcome. That's why I'm honestly I know Bilal's from America, but he trains with Khabib, and that's why I'm so impressed with JDM, the way he was able to kind of counter wrestle Bilal.
Sprawl and brawl. Well, it's a little bit more than sprawling and brawling, but yeah, I think if Ilya beats Oliveira, obviously they're gonna make the Paddy Pimblett fight. I think they're going to try to hide Arman from Ilya. Not to say that Ilya needs to be hidden from Arman, but I do think Arman is gonna be the real champ. You know, Arman is also a young guy. There's Michael Morales and there's Arman. Those are the two young guys. And Arman, he already fought Islam. You know, we've seen how that fight goes. That was a very close fight. You know, to be honest, it could have went either way. I don't know if you remember that fight or not.
Yeah.
Could have went either way. So Arman, I think he's a very solid option for that belt. And probably he will end up getting that belt if he fights either one of them. You know,
yeah, Dustin and Justin are both on their way out. So that's two guys in the top 5 that are going to be going soon. So I believe pretty soon it's going to be the same guys kind of fighting each other all over again, like how it has been for the last few years, with some of these younger guys coming up. And we'll see how long Charles sticks around. But Charles is, you know, I think he's going to get the belt. And, you know, speaking of close fights, the Arman and Charles fight was very close. I thought Charles did enough to win that fight. But what do you think about this, bro? And I'm curious to see what everyone else thinks about this. Sorry, bro. I got people mowing my grass outside. Do you think that the Ilya Charles fight? I guess what I'm trying to ask is which fight do you think was more difficult for Charles to become the champion, against Ilya or against Islam? I believe that the path to the title is easier versus Ilya than it is against going back against Islam.
You say again? You said which way is harder for? Say again?
Yeah. So, which way do you think would have been a harder path to the title for Charles? This Ilya fight, or if he would have fought Islam again?
I think styles make fight. I think the Islam fight would be a harder path, probably.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, but yeah, I think that. I mean, when he fought Islam the first time, I mean, it wasn't like Islam just steamrolled him. You know, I think
it just didn't even seem like the real Charles showed up that night. To be honest,
it really didn't. So I think the harder path would probably be Islam. You know, Ilya, great fighter, but Yeah, I think Islam just a different beast. But I actually have the lightweight rankings here. I think someone who's a dark horse is Dan Hooker. I think Dan Hooker is in the background right now. I think he's gonna shock everybody.
I've
But we
got
got
friends. I've got friends who believe that same thing.
because when he fought Gamrot, I believe last, that was an incredible performance. But we have Fiziev, we got Chandler, we got Benoit Saint Denis, Grant Dawson, Joe Alvarez. You know, Beneil Dariush is in there as well. Paddy Pimblett. You know, I think right now, out of everybody, the people to really, really watch, I think Dariush is cooking up some good stuff right now. I've seen him in the gym. I think Dariush is cooking up some good stuff. I think Dan Hooker is someone who can easily really shock a lot of people. Max Holloway, is he still fighting at 55 or not?
No, I think he's at 45 now.
Yeah, so I don't even know why they have Max Holloway on the rankings, but
and this is, like I said, this is another thing we have to look at. There's going to be two names that are about to drop off of that within the next year. Dustin and Dustin for sure. I don't know when Justin is going to retire. I'm not sure, but I would imagine that it's pretty close. Max Holloway isn't even fighting at lightweight. He's back at featherweight. So
Gamrot. I mean, Hooker is due for a fight soon. You know, he's due for a fight real soon, actually. And let's see here. Yeah, Hooker is someone to really, really watch right now. You know, Pulis. Let's see, Hooker. Yeah. I think Hooker has a great chance of being. Matter of fact, let's see what's going on with Hooker. I mean, with Arnold Allen. I forgot, like, what's he got going on? He fought Giga, and then he just kind of hasn't fought since. That was a while
okay.
ago.
So he had a very close fight against Evloev, and I thought that he beat Evloev. I really did. Evloev got the decision, if I'm not mistaken. And then he beat a very tough opponent in Giga Chikadze. We know how tough he is.
Giga's ridiculously tough. Really
I think Arnold Allen is a guy that, especially since Ilya's gone, I think that Arnold Allen is going to be a guy that could be fighting for a title here within the next 9 months, a year, somewhere in that time frame.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. I think Jalen Turner is going to be back in a few. I do. I think, like, give him a couple years. I think he'll be back. We just see it so many times with MMA fighters coming back. But when we look
he's
at
Dan, good, man. He's so good, and he's still young.
Great fighter. When we look at Dan Hooker, you know, I think he's due to kind of like just take off here in a moment. You know, just based on his career, he's had a lot of ups and downs, and he has nothing in the works, it looks like. I think they might make a fight that makes sense would be Dan Hooker versus, I don't know. Who do you think?
Let's look at the rankings again.
55-pound rankings.
Okay, so we have Arman, which Arman's going to fight probably the winner of Charles and Ilya. Justin, does Justin have a fight booked?
Nah, I don't believe so. Because he just fought.
Dustin, oh, bro. Max is fighting at 155. He's about to fight Dustin Poirier. I don't know if he's going to stay at 155, but he's about to come back up.
Yeah.
So that'll be two out of his last 3 fights at 155. I don't know. I like the Justin fight. Gamrot is supposed to be fighting Renato Moicano, so potentially the winner of that one.
Yeah, Renato Moicano versus Dan Hooker would be an interesting matchup. It's a good fight, fun fight.
Moicano said that's easy money, though.
Yeah, he says everybody's easy money. But
Saint Denis, that would be down in the rankings a little bit, but that would be a really good fight.
Let's go to 170 because since this is 170 week coming up here, you know, with these two matchups, you know, we got Morales is 12. We got Stephen Thompson still in the rankings somehow.
He retired, didn't he?
That's what I thought, but the rankings just don't make sense. Like, Stephen Thompson shouldn't be over Morales. That doesn't make sense. Or he shouldn't definitely be over Carlos Prates,
No.
Vicente Luque, Michael Page. The rankings just make no sense. You know what I'm saying? But
Let's
if
look at this.
Morales beats Gilbert Burns,
He'll be 8.
he'll be 8. So Morales, yeah, he would be ready, to fight for a belt. Or to be like, yeah, he would be up there. I mean, obviously you got Sean Brady in there. I think he doesn't want to wait or fight anybody else. I think he probably earned a title shot at this point. So
the problem is if Joaquin Buckley goes out there and wins in like a real crazy fashion against Usman, they might just Brady might get skipped, and it's the same thing with Ian Gary. You know, Dana hasn't said outright that Ian Gary isn't next, but he said we'll see about it. So welterweight's not the division you want to be sticking around in just because based off of one performance, a guy might just skip you and get a title shot.
yeah, that's a fact. I mean, some people would say that JDM shouldn't have gotten the title shot. I think
Right.
some people would say JDM shouldn't have gotten the title shot.
For
you
sure.
know, because
For sure.
he was out for a while, and then obviously he's never lost at welterweight. He beat Kevin Holland, he beat a lot of guys to get up there. But some people say that his Gilbert Burns win was just only like like he didn't beat Kobe or what, but he beat a lot of guys.
that
and he definitely deserved to fight for the belt.
The Hafez win was a pretty good one. Hafez surprised me when he came in the UFC with just how good he looked in his first fight.
Yeah. Morales, I've been watching him loosely. 17 fight win streak, 12 wins by knockout, 8 first round finishes. It's very impressive. Takedown accuracy, almost 50% takedowns. He's at 42%. Striking accuracy, almost at 50%. It's very impressive stuff. Average fight time, 10 minutes, 92% takedown defense. So going in there with Gilbert Burns, there's a good chance Gilbert Burns doesn't take him down with that. We'll get into Gilbert Burns stats as well, but Morales,
it'll be interesting to see because, like I said, Neil Magny was able to get his back within the first minute and a half of their fight, but we look at the rest of his guys. I don't know that he's fought another wrestler on the same level as Gilbert, so those stats might be a little
skewed.
I don't want to discredit him or anything. What I like about the kid is that he's had a lot of fights to be as young as he is. 17 fights is a lot of fights.
Yeah, that is a lot of fights.
That's definitely a lot of fights.
25. That's a lot of fights at 25 years old.
That's a lot, bro.
That's another thing. That means he's been extremely active.
Yeah.
For if he went pro, let's say in 2018, I don't know when he went pro, but let's say he went pro. That he's been extremely active. That means that he's been training the whole time, taking these fights. That's really good stuff. Gilbert Burns, let's see how his takedown accuracy is. Takedown accuracy is 38%. So if we're just going by the numbers, he's probably not going to be able to take down Morales. If we're going by the numbers, striking accuracy almost 50%. So they're pretty similar in that regard. Average fight time is pretty similar, 12:44. Takedown defense, 54%. So looking at these numbers, man, Morales is probably going to take. He's very likely to take down Gilbert Burns. It's not looking good for Burns on paper, but we all know fights aren't fought on paper.
Right. Yeah, I'm excited to see it, bro. And it's getting to be about that time that I guess the main card just kicked off.
Yeah. Burns by sub, West Coast Club says. Could happen. I doubt it though. I highly doubt it.
If Burns wins this fight, he'll be right back in the mix, bro. I mean, he's still probably gonna be another 2 fights away from the title, but if he is able to beat this kid anyway, even if it's by decision, but especially if he gets it done like by finish, he'll breathe life into his career.
Let's take it left for a moment. Let's go into heavyweight because there's been a lot of talk about heavyweight. And so we got John Jones versus Tom Aspinall. Of course, everybody is talking about that fight. I'll be honest, bro. I don't think Aspinall beats Ciryl Gane.
Ooh.
I think Ciryl Gane beats Aspinall. I think that's a horrible matchup.
Let's look at these rankings. I'm gonna go out there and say that I don't know how impressive Tom Aspinall's track record is, especially with the Sergey Pavlovich win. And I know Sergey's a big puncher, but he kind of went out there and got outclassed by what's the tall guy's name? The real tall heavyweight.
Volkov?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Tybura, bro. I mean, Curtis Blades.
Spivak.
I think the most impressive win, looking back, is the Volkov win.
Volkov, yeah, that's an impressive win by submission. I mean, he is clearly a great fighter. That's why Jones said it like years ago, like this is a guy to watch out for. But I don't believe that he would beat Ciryl Gane. I think Ciryl Gane is a bad matchup for him. I think just stylistically, when we see let's look into Ciryl Gane a little bit more. So Ciryl Gane, he also beat Volkov. You know,
if they don't get the and that was a close fight if I'm not mistaken. I think Ciryl Gane got hurt. Yeah, and if they don't end up booking this fight between John Jones and him soon, that might just be the fight that's going to happen.
I mean, bro, Ciryl Gane has had a more impressive resume than Tom Aspinall. You know what I'm saying? Like, look at this shit.
I agree.
He beat Junior Dos Santos. He beat Rosenstruck. He beat Volkov twice. He beat Derek Lewis. He beat Tai Tuivasa. He beat Spivak. Ciryl Gane has a far more impressive resume than Tom Aspinall.
I agree. Not even
a question. So people who are on Tom Aspinall's dick right now, bro, I don't believe Tom Aspinall will beat Ciryl Gane. Yes, Ciryl Gane got destroyed by John Jones, but we're talking about John Jones here. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Most people lose to John Jones. So
yeah, that's going to be a totally different fight. That fight's going to start on the feet and probably end on the feet. A Ciryl Gane versus Aspinall.
So I think, to be honest, I think Tom Aspinall should have to fight Ciryl Gane.
I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it, especially if Jones. We'll see. Dana said the fight's almost done, but my dark horse in that division is Jelton Almeida. I absolutely love him. I absolutely love Almeida.
I agree. He's a smaller heavyweight, but it seems to work.
His wrestling is just too dominant, and he can strike. He hasn't shown it a whole lot because he hasn't had to. The loss against Curtis Blades, I believe, was an absolute fluke. He shot in real deep on a takedown, and he got finished with some hammer fist. He won't go out like that again. That was a fluke.
So if he fights someone who knows how to wrestle, he gets cooked.
I don't know about that because he's so dominant. Now, if he fights Jones, but bro, his wrestling reminds me of these guys like these guys out in Russia, bro. He's got like that crazy pressure wrestling. Like when he goes for it, he's not going to give up on that takedown. He's going to keep digging it until he gets it.
Yeah, I like his style. Great ground game.
Some people don't like him. Some people don't like him because they find it boring. But you got to understand, he's taking advantage of these bigger guys that really can't hang, and he's getting wins.
Yeah, man. I think you have to make Ciryl Gane versus Tom Aspinall. Whoever wins that fight gets to fight John Jones. If I'm the matchmaker, that's what I'm going to do. But to be honest, I don't know who some of these guys are heavyweight. I don't know who Waldo is. I have no idea who this guy is. I've seen him fight before.
Yeah, I've seen him.
Waldo, I've seen him fight, yeah.
Heavyweight's the worst division right now, bro.
Yeah, Desponge, he beat him. Remember they were like hyping him up, Desponge?
The Cuban?
Yeah, the Cuban tall dude. Yeah, he's a dangerous fighter, but, it's just interesting how these hype trains come and go. Mick, I've never seen this dude fight.
Mick Parkin, I've seen Mick Parkin's pretty good. He had a close fight against Tybura.
Usman's brother. I guess he's not in there no more, or what?
I don't know if he was ever in the rankings.
Or no, not in the rankings, but is he still in the UFC?
I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, look, there's not a lot going on in heavyweight. For them to outright cut somebody at heavyweight, you got to be doing really bad.
Yeah, yeah, because I believe there's like 24 heavyweights. Yeah, I mean, there's some interesting matches. You know, Tai Tuivasa. Let's look at Tai Tuivasa's resume. Actually,
He's had
did
a rough go at it recently, last couple years. Oof.
Oh yeah, he's had a tough run the
Oh,
last couple
oh,
years.
keep scrolling. Is he 4? Okay, he's on a 4 loss.
Yeah,
Okay.
4 losses. You
Lost
know,
5 out of his last 6.
I mean, to be honest, let's say if Tom Aspinall were to fight Tai Tuivasa, I think that's a hard matchup for Tom. You know,
Well,
styles makes fights, and I think that's a very hard matchup for Tom.
here's another unpopular opinion, but Tom has a tendency of kind of getting caught too. I've seen Tom get caught in a few of his fights, but where Tom is able to win is because he's so fast and athletic. And so he's able to make up for a lot of his deficiencies against those big fat slobs. I hate to say it like that, but it is what it is. But against Jones or against Surreal Gun, these guys that are lighter heavyweights that can really move like that and have all these tools, I think it's gonna be trouble. But I think where the fans are at now, bro, they just want to see Jones. They just want to see Jones fight him. They want to see the belts be unified, and they should be. They should be. I think I heard this crazy stat. It was like Tom Aspinall was the longest reigning interim champ. I mean, it's been like over a year.
But honestly, that's UFC's fault because they should have never made an interim belt in the first place. Why did they make that belt for Tom? You know what I'm saying? They should have done it because John Jones fought Surreal Gun how long ago? Was that like how long was that? That wasn't 2 years ago, was it? How long was it? Was that 2 years ago?
That was probably about 2 years ago. Yeah, close.
Okay, all right. I guess it makes sense.
It took a year. Took a year for him to recover from the pec thing or whatever.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so yeah, I guess they should have made an interim belt. I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't think he makes it past Surreal, you know, and that's not to say Tom isn't a great fighter. He's a great fighter, but when we look at Surreal Gun, we can't just forget that they were making this guy pretending like they were saying he's the next coming, the next big thing. And
they were saying the same thing about Tom.
You know, and then he loses to Jones, and then they're like, "Oh, Surreal sucks now." Like, all right, like you know what I'm saying? So
they pushed the goalpost on John Jones, bro. People put and I know a lot of people don't like John Jones, but people push the goalpost on what he needs to do.
Yeah, because they want to see him lose. In MMA, they want to see you get knocked out. They want to see you flat on your back. You know, they want to see you broken. That's what they want to see in MMA. Like, it's just a fact. That's what they love in MMA. Like, we want to see fighters just get destroyed, and you know, it's the highs and the lows. Like, you know, it's very rare for someone to leave the sport unscathed or leave the sport on top. Like, look at Khabib. People hate that Khabib left the sport undefeated with all the money, and you know, they don't want to see that. At least with McGregor, they're like, okay, McGregor made a bunch of money, cool, but he left the sport with a broken, you know, his foot broken in half, and his dreams taken from him, and you know, allegedly a drug addiction, maybe. You know what I'm saying? That's what people want to see in MMA. Unfortunately, you know, it is a toxic, you know, fan base.
Yeah, it's people in general. When in reality, bro, if a spotlight was shown on every single person's life and people were able to see your darkest moments caught on camera, you probably wouldn't be too happy about what would come out.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, yeah, John Jones has done a lot of crazy shit, but in his defense, bro came on the scene as a fucking 21-year-old, was in the top of the sport, whooping everyone's ass. So where I had time to develop in certain areas, and you had time to develop in certain areas, he didn't have that time to develop because he's training nonstop in fight camps, winning fights, back to fight camp, nonstop. So he didn't have time to develop in certain areas. Now, it's not an excuse, but it's just like you can't measure yourself as a civilian to someone like a competitive high-level athlete fighter, because you have time to go to your job and to learn how to do shit and do X, Y, and Z. They don't have time for that. They're fully in their sport. You know what I'm saying? So it's just interesting to me, and that's one thing I think Jalen Turner kind of maybe one of the reasons he retired was because he took a moment away from the sport and started living life as a regular person. I believe he got married. I believe he became a Muslim or something like that. And he's like, you know what? Life is pretty nice not getting punched. Like, life is good. Like, I got my girl, I got this, I'm making money. Like, I don't need this shit, And that's a valid point because the sport's a hard sport, It really is. So I understand where Jalen is coming from.
Yeah, bro. Well, me being in recovery myself and seeing some of the things that I've seen and being around some of the people I've been around, I am not in the business of saying someone is an absolute screw up and they don't deserve a second chance just because they mess up in life. Because I've seen so many people who have done terrible things. I'm just going to be quite honest. Go on to lead productive lives, have families, and be contributing members of society. We know that John Jones has he's got this relationship with Jesus. He always proclaims that. And like, I'm not going to be the guy that says, oh, but do you remember what you did? Because the truth of the matter is like we've all done things we're not proud of. Sure, some of us haven't wrecked a car into a pregnant woman and ran, but it's like I'm not that person. And look, if we can't have second chances in life and learn and try to learn from it, then what's life even about?
Yeah, I agree 1,000,000%, 1,000%. Well, let's see if you're a casual or how much you really know about MMA. I'm gonna pull up the Hall of Fame. Right, this is the Pioneer Wing,
Let's go.
UFC. So you seen Vanderlei fight?
First fight I ever saw in my life, the Axe Murderer against Rampage Jackson. It was a fight with Forrest Griffin and Rashad Evans.
Yeah, and then Anderson Silva.
Everybody knows him. Jens Pulver, the first 155-pound champion. Kevin Randleman, we all know Kevin Randleman from the Pride days. Rich Franklin, Matt Serra, big puncher, big puncher, Matt Serra. Little dude, bro. Sakuraba, he's dead now, ain't he?
Nah, Sakuraba is still alive. Yeah,
Okay.
I believe so. But I don't believe he ever fought in the UFC. But
no, he fought in Pride. That was Don Fry's big adversary, wasn't it?
Yeah, Sakuraba. I mean, he was a Gracie killer. That's what they called him. He beat a lot of Gracies.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right, now we're gonna see if you're a casual.
Bro, I'm not even gonna lie. Was that the dude that used to have the boxing glove on? I don't know who that is.
Nah, that was Art Jimerson. Maurice Smith, he is the guy who basically brought in leg kicks in the UFC. He's the first guy, kickboxer, to win a championship, and he did it from leg kicks. He was the guy who brought in the leg kicks. Don Fry.
I got to do my homework. Yeah, Pat Miletich, Bass Rutten,
Pat Miletich, Nogueira, Tito, Matt Hughes, Chuck Liddell. You don't know Chuck Liddell.
If you don't know him, something's wrong. Mark Coleman, Randy, Dan Severn, Royce King. Yeah, just the one guy, bro. Just the one guy. And maybe if I saw a clip of him fighting, it would jog my memory. But yeah, I know all these guys.
Let's see some of the top fights in history. Anderson Silva versus Chael 1. Did you ever see that one?
Chael won that fight, bro.
Yeah, nah, he got last I checked, he got choked out. He got fucking
He
submitted.
did. He was dominating that fight though, bro.
Oh, man, that was crazy.
Until the end. You heard what
When,
he said? He made a joke. He was like, I was under the impression that if you tap, you just forfeit that round. But if you won the other rounds before that you win.
he's
Tell the
such a
character.
yeah, he's a character. But I remember watching that fight. I'll never forget. We all were hyped up. I was in high school, had all the homies over. We're watching that fight, and we couldn't believe that Cheryl was actually whooping his ass. He was literally just whooping his ass the entire time. And then the last round, last minute, I think it was the last minute.
It was like the last minute, bro.
Bro, threw that triangle up, put him to sleep. That was crazy. It doesn't get better than that. You know what I'm saying? That's why sometimes people be like, oh, this shit's scripted.
It's unpredictable.
So unpredictable, and then Rory McDonald versus Robbie Lawler too.
That shaved some years off of McDonald.
Oh yeah, to say the least.
At least on his fighting career.
Yeah, bro doesn't fight no more. I mean, Cub Swanson versus Duho Choi. I can't really say I really watched that fight.
Mm-mm.
I really can't be honest.
Gustafson Jones, we've seen that one. Sanchez versus Guida was a good one. Shogun versus Hendo.
Classic. One of the best fights ever. And how many of these fights are fights that aren't for a ranking, aren't for a title? This was a championship fight. This was a championship fight. This was like, just kind of like not really like a ranking fight. This wasn't no ranking fight. This wasn't no ranking fight.
That's what the sport's all about, bro. In my opinion, I mean, only so many people can be champion, and then there's the rest, right?
Yeah, and there's still a place for all of them. Obviously, Forrest Griffin versus Stephen Bonner. Frank Trigg. Mark Coleman.
Frank Trigg used to be crazy back in the day.
Yeah, the modern ring Hall of Fame. Shogun, Joanna, Frankie Edgar, Khabib, Donald Cerrone, Jose, Daniel Cormier, George St. Pierre, Rashad Evans.
I would argue that Shogun had a bunch of star power back in the day. Like
Shogun was basically the John Jones back in the day.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
He was 21 years old. He had the 2 belts in Pride. This list is actually very small. I thought it was more people, but yeah, this is impressive. If you're able to get on in the Hall of Fame, it's a big deal. I mean, they just inducted Vitor to the Hall of Fame, right? So I guess he must be in the pioneer category or something. Vitor,
you would think so, unless they haven't added him yet. What is the? These are coaches or something.
I think the Hall of Fame is bigger than this.
Bro, who's running this website? Because this is a multi-billion-dollar company. How do y'all not have the rankings refreshed? How do y'all not have?
They don't care. They're like, hey, they're gonna watch the fights regardless. We don't give a fuck. We're gonna do it. You're gonna get it when you get it, like type shit.
Yeah. and you're gonna watch anyway. Speaking of, bro, I think I'm about to go get out of here and watch some of these fights, man.
Oh yeah, likewise. Oh yeah. Well, you guys go check out Deal with Will. Check out his channel. He's on there, constantly posting. I'm sure he's gonna be posting about these fights as well. Is there anything else you got coming up you want to let them know about?
Man, just stay on the lookout for some of these live streams. This is something me and Manny's been doing. I think we're going to continue doing it more often. I usually do once a week a smaller podcast with Greatness Personified MMA where we talk about some of the fight cards, and I'm actually about to start doing some of my own videos too. Manny's inspired me a lot with that, so yeah, just come check it out. This is a brand new YouTube page that I got, so all of my new followers, you guys are going to be my first followers that are going to really help me get this thing off the ground.
Oh yeah, and like what type of content are you gonna be posting?
So anything from fight clips. I do some of the green screen stuff, and I really don't like to do it, but for whatever reason, YouTube pushes that into the algorithm the most. But what I really post about the most, and what I like to post about the most are just these little 1 minute, 30 second to 1 minute clips where I'm talking about a fight that just happened, or my picks for the fights, or what I think about a future fight. And then as far as the long form videos, we're talking about the cards that just happened. We're talking about what we saw and what we think is going to be next for some of these fighters.
Yeah. Well, yeah, guys, check out Deal with Will. You know, we're gonna keep it rolling. Hey, much love, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Yes.
So yeah, that's Deal with Will. You know, solid dude. But yeah, man, I want to continue on this train of thought. You know, I want to continue on this train of thought with, you know, what PFL is missing, or these different places, these different shows are missing. I honestly think it's the countdowns. You know, back in the day, we used to have these countdown shows, and they were literally like they just got you so excited for the fights. You know, I remember watching Jones versus Rashad Evans was like one of the best UFC prime times ever. And I remember watching Roger Huerta. Roger Huerta was the first UFC fighter basically to be on the Sports Illustrated. And you know, there's been so many people who've done documentaries on Roger Huerta and his story, but basically UFC had him on for multiple countdown shows, and they went into his story and all this stuff, and it was just a good time. You know, we had guys like Melvin Gillard. So this right here, this sparring footage of Roger Huerta and Melvin Gillard. And Roger Huerta is still around. Melvin Gillard, old school fighter, you know, great fighter back in the day. You know, he was the guy, he had like blonde hair. He was in there whooping people's ass, knocking them out. Great fighter. You know, he was good shit. You know, the Roger Huerta style was just like the typical Mexican style of boxing. He was going in there, going all out, trying to knock people out. He just had a great fight. Him and Clay Guida had an incredible fight back in the day. The Roger Huerta, back in that time, he like took a risk and went over to Bellator to get more money. And, you know, the risk didn't really pan out for him because he had some tough fights. He fought War Machine. He fought Eddie Alvarez, you know, before Eddie Alvarez was UFC champion. So there's a page called What Happened MMA.
Go your jab, Melvin.
And they did a really good documentary on Roger Huerta. So let's see if we can find that right quick. We'll kind of go into this documentary a little bit, but that's something I'm kind of interested in. It's starting to just, you know, there's so many new MMA fans out there that don't know about these guys like Roger Huerta. They don't know about all these different stories in MMA. And there's so many. Oh, damn, this channel get taken down? What happened to MMA? See. Oh, here we go. All right, here we go. So we're gonna watch some of these documentaries real quick. Let's see here. What happened to James Vick? Let's see this.
Whatever happened to James the Executioner Vick? James was a towering 6'3" lightweight fighter from Mineral Wells, Texas, who broke out on the 15th season of The Ultimate Fighter, the first ever live season. He got into the house with a split decision win over Dakota Cochran and went on to win 2 more fights against.
Oh man, Deal with Will. Hey, make sure you guys check out Deal with Will.
Winner Mike Chiesa in the semifinal by TKO in the second round. He made his UFC debut at Fight Night Shogun vs. Sutton in 2013 with a 58-second guillotine choke of Ramsey Niger. Vick would rattle off 5 more victories, including the finish of Jake Matthews, and to run into some left hands of Benny Dariush suffering his first pro loss after amassing a record of 9-0. Vic would bounce back with 4 more wins, 3 of them finishes over Abel Trujillo, Polo Reyes, and Joe Duffy. Vic was then set up to face a sliding Justin Gaethje on a 2-fight skid, preparing to send him back to the quote-unquote B League. We all know what happened in the cage on August 25, 2018. Gaethje KO'd Vic with a mean right hand, leading to a crazy losing streak where Vic would be KO'd 4 out of 5 times. Vic's contract
Brutal
with the
sport.
UFC expired after his upkick KO
Brutal
loss to
sport.
Nico Price, probably the most brutal of them all. His last fight was on January 3rd of 2021, a knockout loss to Andre Fiallo in the ex-MMA promotion where he retired shortly thereafter. After checking in to see what Vic is up to now, I discovered he is returning to combat sports, taking on Simon.
Yeah, man, that's how it goes in the fight game sometimes. You know, with James Vick, you know, he fought recently in Karate Combat, and it didn't turn out well. You know, it was one of the most brutal knockouts ever. One of the most brutal knockouts ever. You know, bro almost died in that knockout. So it's funny to see how things can switch real quick. You know, he went from being on a win streak back to back to back. You know, he fought Justin Gaethje. Bro got hit, boom. And his career is basically never the same from that point. And that could be for multiple reasons. That could be because maybe he was training too crazy. Maybe he was taking too much damage in training. Maybe that's where his chin went. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe after that Gaethje fight, he came back too soon. You know, but this is the stuff we need. You know, we need these stories, you know, in MMA. And this channel right here, What Happened MMA, a lot of good stuff. You know, a lot of good stuff. But I'm trying to talk about that Roger Huerta. The story of Roger Huerta is one of the most interesting stories in the fight game. You know, and these guys are obviously still alive. Like Roger Huerta's still around. He's in like Thailand or something. But if you're a new MMA fan and you don't know about these stories, you gotta go back and do your research. You gotta do your due diligence. 9 strikes fighters shouldn't have survived. I mean, there's a million. Let's see here. Damn, man. Did they delete it? I think they might have deleted. Bro, they might have deleted the documentary. Nah, man. Well, anyways, basically, there's a documentary, What Happened in MMA, about Roger Huerta. Roger Huerta, we could say he was like, back in the day, he was like, let's say like a Paddy Pimblett, right? Maybe a little bit more because he was like a real dog, real good fighter, super skilled fighter. And, you know, he was the first fighter to get into the UFC or to get on Sports Illustrated as a UFC fighter. And it was like a crazy big moment for the sport because now the sport was being accepted by the mainstream, which, you know, nobody would have ever thought that that UFC would be. I guess it got deleted. Damn. I mean, this was a great documentary. Oh well, fuck it. So yeah, no one would have ever thought that UFC would be on Sports Illustrated back in the day, because back in the day, it was seen as like just the most brutal, worst sport ever seen, as not even a sport. If you watched it, you were looked down upon. So that it was an interesting story. I might even do a story on it, actually, the Roger Huerta story. So, you know, let me know what you guys think. But let's go back to the current fights. Let's see what's going on. You know, might have to take a break and come back. But yeah, Jared Gordon, I think he's a dude to really watch in the division right now. I think he's going to come out. He's going to have some real big wins. I think he's pissed off about the Paddy Pimblett loss, and I think that's the guy to watch. I'm going to take a break. I'll be back in a few, guys. Much love. Learn to fight.